Folder redirection using group policy. Group policy allows administrators to configure common user folders to be redirected and stored on a network share rather than just on the local machine. Now, back in Windows 2003, there were 5 folders that could be redirected using group policy. Those were the application data folder, which contains application specific settings and configuration information. We had the desktop, the My Documents, and the My Pictures folder. And of course the Windows Start menu, although it's worth pointing out that the My Documents and My Pictures folder are now in line with Windows Vista, and they're simply called Documents and Pictures. Now in Windows 2008, this has been expanded to 13 folders, which includes music, videos, favorites, contacts, downloads, links, searches, and saved games. So why would we bother with storing this data in these folders anywhere but on the local machine? Well, with perhaps the exception of things like saved games, which probably won't hold much weight in a corporate environment, unless you work for someone like Electronic Arts, of course, users typically like to do what's easiest. Most applications, including all of the inbuilt Windows ones, will by default use the Documents folder to store their saved files. Now, even though in most organizations the administrator has gone and set up a home folder for users to save their documents in, users still often go with the easiest solution, and that's to use the default folder which pops up when they try to save a document, which is more often than not the Documents folder. The only real problem with this is that most local users' workstations aren't backed up. So if their hard drive fails, then everything they've been working on is lost. So redirecting these folders to a network file share is a smart idea, because then all of the data in those locations can then be included and backed up as part of your normal backup cycle. So before we configure folder redirection, let's first click on Start, and we'll go to Administrative Tools, and we'll launch Active Directory Users and Computers. And we'll go and create a new OU, and we'll give this one a name. I'm going to call this one Vista Clients, and we'll click on OK, and then we'll go to our users container, and I'm just going to drop the administrator's account into this new OU we've just created, since we'll use this account for our demonstration purposes. Okay, well now that's done, we'll go and click on Start. We'll go back to Administrative Tools, and we'll launch the Group Policy Management Console. Alright, on the left here, we're going to right click on the new OU we created, which was Vista Clients, and we'll choose the top option to create a GPO in this domain and link it here. And we'll need to give this policy a name, so I'm just going to call this one Folder Redirection, and then click on OK. Alright, now we'll expand our OU Vista Clients, and we'll right click on our new Folder Redirection Policy, and we'll click Edit, and then that'll fire up the Group Policy Management Editor. Now over here on the left, under the User Configuration heading, we're going to expand Policies, then we'll expand Windows Settings, and then the Folder Redirection option, and you can see here we have 13 different options for folder redirection here, and thankfully all of them work in the same way, so once you've configured one of these policies, you'll know how to configure the rest. So let's redirect our Documents folder first. We'll right click on Documents, and we'll select Properties. Now the first thing we need to do is to select the target. Now the default here is not configured, but we can select from Basic, which redirects everyone's documents to the same folder, or we can choose Advanced, and this allows us to redirect our documents based on group membership. For example, if you are a member of a marketing group or the sales group. So we're going to use the Basic option, and then we'll need to specify a target folder location. Now the default is to create a folder for each user under the root path of the folder that we'll specify below, but you might prefer to use the top option to redirect to the user's home directory, as it's likely that most of your users already have a home directory defined. Now you can also redirect to a specific location, which means you might have a bit of work configuring this if you have a lot of users, or you could redirect to a user's profile location. So I'm going to choose the top option here to redirect to the user's home directory, and then we'll click on the Settings tab, and the default here is to grant the user administrative rights over their own folder, and that's okay because an administrator still has full control as well. We can move the contents of any existing files they have stored in their Documents folder right now to the new location when this policy takes effect, And we have a third option here which will apply this redirection policies to machines other than Windows Vista and 2008, which this policy really applies to. Now remember that in Windows Vista and 2008, the documents and pictures and music folders and so forth are simply named documents, pictures and music. Whereas in these older operating systems, they were called My Documents and My Pictures and My Music. So this will allow those operating systems to work with this policy if you need it. Now down here, if we decide to remove this policy later on, we can either leave the folder in the new location that we're setting now, or we could redirect it back to the local profile location where it was before. So you have a couple of choices there. Alright, well we'll click on OK, and we'll get a message here telling us that if we apply redirection to the Documents folder on any of these older operating systems, that it's also going to set the pictures, music and video folders as well if they're currently not configured. Now that's fine, we'll say yes, and we're done. Now you'll also notice that if we right click on say another folder like our pictures folder and choose properties, that this has automatically been configured to follow the documents folder, so these are going to be redirected as well. Okay, well I've just logged on to a Windows Vista machine as an administrator, and if we go and click on Start and we'll right click on say our pictures folder and choose properties, you can see here that it's currently pointing to our local machine. So let's go and update the policy on this machine so it will grab a copy of the new folder redirection policy that we've just created. So we'll go and click on Start and we'll open up a command prompt, and then we'll refresh the policy by typing in GP update and we'll hit enter. Okay, it's done, and it's now asked us to log off since this policy does require some processing to be done before the user logs on. So we'll log off and we'll come back in a moment. Alright, well we've logged off and back on, so let's go and click on Start and we'll right click on any of our 4 redirected folders, let's say the Pictures folder, and we'll select Properties. And you'll now see here that the path to our folder is now dco1/home/administrator, so this is now pointing to a remote shared folder on our server and not the local machine. Now if we cancel this and we'll go and click Start again and we'll open up our Pictures folder, you'll see here that we now have this green icon over the folder indicating that this is now an offline folder that's synchronized with our server. In this video we've talked about how we can redirect users' folders to another location like a central file server, and this is a good idea as it allows these folders to then be backed up as part of your normal backup cycle. Now don't forget that this is a user policy and it will affect user accounts, not computer accounts. So you need to target this policy at users, not computers, so bear that in mind when you set up your own folder redirection policies. We hope you've enjoyed this video and would like to thank you for supporting Winstructor.